Welcome to today's episode of Ask Pitch Anything. So if you have your own questions, how do I solve a pitch problem? How do I get someone to pay attention to me? How do I get past a gatekeeper? Then go up on Twitter, submit us a question. We'll try and solve your problem and your question. We're doing this for Fortune 500 companies. We definitely can do it for you. So today's question, I want to work for a retail company here in London, and I want to convince the company to let me be a representative for the goods that they have. I can make a lot of money doing that job. I've been testing your ideas and want to see if it works in this situation. My main challenge is this. What exactly could I say on a cold call that will create intrigue, novelty, and be visual as well? Enough for them to let me come in and pitch in person. A script template would be extremely useful. Well, I understand a script template would be extremely useful. I'd love to have a script for everything I'm supposed to do during the day, but I jotted down some thoughts, and let me try and solve this problem. So if you're cold calling, right, what you have to start with is, number one, a personal connection. Cold calling with a return on investment or some upside or some benefits does not work today. Information is way too available. These guys get way too many cold calls. Unless you're calling in and saying, we know John or Tom or Susan in common, that cold call is going nowhere. Or we're in the same organization, we live in the same area, I was in your shop or your company the other day and I saw this, which leads us into the next piece of the cold calling. So one, it's got to be social. We know somebody in common or in the same group. Number two, you need to have some information that's valuable. For example, I was in one of your stores over the last few days because I wanted to make this call and introduce myself, and I noticed some very interesting things about your foot traffic. I took some notes over 2 hours and saw some data that I'm sure you'd be interested in having, right? You've got something valuable that people want. So it's social, and you've got something that they want and they don't have. And then I think the third thing is you've got to prize yourself. Instead of saying, I'd like to come in and talk to you, I'd like you to consider me working for you, which is really supplicating and neediness. Instead, I think you come in and you say, on the heels of, I've got some information that you're going to want. I've got it and nobody else has it. In order to get it, you have to get it from me, right? Of course, you don't say it in that way, but that's what you imply. You might say, as I noted, I've got some information. I noticed some of the foot traffic. I noticed the numbers. There's some very revealing data inside the notes I took. I think you'd want to see this if we spent a few minutes together. I think the last thing you say is prizing. I'm considering a few different companies at the head of this field to talk to and maybe represent their products. I'm a very successful rep, and based on what I've seen, I'd be interested in talking to you guys. I'd be willing to spend a few minutes with you and see if our paths would connect and if I'd be a good fit as a rep and if you'd be a good fit for the kind of company that I like to work for. So you got to prize yourself and let them know that you're interviewing some retailers and you'd be willing to consider them. One, it's social. Two, you've got some information. And three, you're considering them, and that will then set up a meeting. So that's how you go in cold and end up with a meeting. And I think the other thing is you have to understand, a lot of people email me and say, hey, I'm going to this one meeting. I want the perfect thing to say for it. Well, you need is reps, right? By that I mean you want to go try these scripts and these on many, many different companies. So if there's one company that you want to get into, I would say at least try this on 10 companies. So by the time you get to that one company, you've gone through some reps or cycles and you've done it a few times and you're warmed up and you know exactly what you're doing. So it's never just one shot, one kill, lick the bullet. You should have done this multiple times by the time you get to the company that you're really interested in getting into. That's how you go in with a cold call. That's how you get their attention, get the meeting, and eventually get the job. All right. So if you have questions for Ask Pitch Anything, hit us up on Twitter. You can email us. And, of course, if you haven't read Pitch Anything yet, go to Amazon and just type in Oren or Pitch Anything and get the book. See you next time. Ask Pitch Anything.